All right, well, we're live here, so let's kick things off, and I'll figure out some of the technical stuff a little bit later when we're going through it. But we're at the top of the hour here, so I think let's get started. I think a round of introductions would be welcome. I'm sure many in the Uniswap community know who you guys are, either through Discord or the Grants Program. But I think for anyone on the call who doesn't, I'm sure that would be really helpful. Happy to pass it to you guys first, and then I can go after you guys. Any of you guys want to?
Who'll go first? Usually, I'll go first. So when we do interviews for the grants program, we usually, one of us introduces all of us because basically we do all the same thing. But maybe we switch it up for this time. So my name is Boris. I'm part of the Uniswap Grants Program, Uniswap community. For the past almost a year now, it's my work anniversary. Or the anniversary soon. What I do, I review the grants applications. I host the Uniswap community calls every 2 weeks. And then we make sure that the grants that we support actually, that they turn out successful. So connecting them with the right people, funding them, trying to break barriers in front of them, basically. So that's us and myself together. That's me. Nice. Hi.
Nice to have you, Boris.
I will go then, YJ. Hi, everybody. My name is Fede. I'm also part of the Uniswap Grants Program. I was a grantee. I started as a grantee, so I applied to the Uniswap Grant Program to develop a simulator to simulate Uniswap V3 strategies. I got funds and I got involved in the community. And 3 months ago, I joined the team with YJ, Ken, and Boris. We review all together other applications and we follow up grants and help people to develop tools that help the Uniswap community.
And I'm YJ. Yeah, I'm also one of the reviewers for Uniswap Grants Program. First started getting involved with Uniswap stuff, helping out with more difficult user tech support on Discord. I also help kind of keep an eye on some other channels, international community on the Discord server, for example, like the Chinese channel, Japanese channel, Indonesian channel. And then about 6 months ago now, started helping Boris and Ken, and later on Fede as well, with reviews on grants. And then most recently, Fede and I started the UniGrants like community analytics program, which we are running right now with data analytics bounties for various topics to encourage this stuff open sharing of crypto and Uniswap analytics for the community. So that's me.
Awesome. Welcome everyone. My name is Jerry. I'm a research analyst on the Messari team. I am based out of San Francisco here. I wrote the Q1 quarterly report that we'll be spending some time talking about today. I also wrote the Q4 quarterly report, so I'm fairly familiar with the contents of both reports. Happy to kind of talk about some of the quarter-over-quarter changes that we saw. And I think we can get started and kind of dive into the report here. This is where I want to try to share my screen, and we'll go and see if I'm able to make this work here. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet? How does this work? Still nothing?
No.
All right. Give me a quick second. Some technical difficulties. Oh.
Yeah, something came out now.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Ethan. All right. So Ethan is sharing his. So yes. So we got the report pulled up. This is the State of Uniswap Q1 2012. I guess I just wanted to pull this up because one of the things I want to add as a quick disclaimer before we start is, Ethan, it's zooming out a little bit here, but Traditionally, in our reports, we host them on our website at Messari.io. And for the for the quarterly reports, we decided to go and convert all of them to PDF as well. We think that just in general, PDFs is an easy way for distribution, and we want to make sure that everyone in the community has an opportunity to go and read the report, to go and distribute and send to their friends, for example, if they want to go and download it. So these are all the things that they can do. And I think Ethan's got that pulled up here. This is the PDF copy. If you guys just want to go pull it up and check it out, it's available on the website. And I think we have that linked in the chat bar to the right at the very top. So I guess like diving into the report here, I've actually got a presentation that I wanted to pull up. So I'm going to continue to try to share my screen if possible.
I like the 6 in the brackets, State of Uniswap version 6 final underscore.
Final, definitely the last one.
Thank you.
Issued.
Can you guys see my screen right now?
Nope.
Don't know. All right. Well, I guess like let's just share this report and we'll go off the report. If Doug or Ethan, you guys want to go and pull that up again. But I think in general, I know the numbers fairly well. So we can get started with talking about a little bit about the macro. So the key metrics summary is the table that we'll want to kind of talk about here. To give a quick overview from a high level of Uniswap and how it performed in Q1, I would say that Q1 was a very different quarter relative to Q4. I would say Q4 was a very there were a lot of catalysts for Q4. You think about the rise of NFTs at the beginning of Q4. Bitcoin and Ethereum all hit an all-time high during that quarter. And so all of that activity clearly benefits Uniswap because it encourages a lot of people to go to the DEX, to go and make trades, encourages trading activity. Q1, in contrast, is a little bit more of a pullback, what I would consider a reversion back to the mean. And so we did kind of see some quarter-over-quarter decreases in like total volume, in liquidity, trading fees, things like that. One important caveat to note, though, is that it is all priced in USD equivalent denominations. So obviously, even if the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these crypto tokens are decreasing, that's going to affect some of the metrics here as well. For you guys on this panel, personally, like when you think about Uniswap and the health of the protocol, what are important metrics that you guys look at? What are the best ways to go and think about, okay, how do we go about analyzing Uniswap?
I personally do believe that it's important to have a look to the relative performances of Uniswap compared to the other DEXs. So as you say, the last Q1, in this Q1, the market in general was quite not as exciting, let's say, as it was in Q4. But if you check the dominance or the performances of Uniswap compared to other EMMs and other DEXs, Uniswap was quite consistently the top DEX also in Q1. And I think that's a good sign of strength and of health of the protocol.
Maybe I share my thoughts. So like trading volumes and numbers don't really interest me that much because it all has to do with how much crypto in general is getting traction and interest among people. But as long as I see that projects are launching on top of Uniswap, so as soon as they introduce token, there's a Uniswap pool which has a lot of activity, and there are also liquidity mining incentives, and they're using Uniswap for what it was built for. That's just exactly what Uniswap as a protocol needs, that it's being used, and now at what volumes it's being used. It just has to do with the whole cryptocurrency scene and the market in general, and you can't affect it that much as a DEX or as a protocol.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way, in the sense that I think one of the things I raised when looking at the report was, if you talk about volume reducing, because we normally use that USD equivalent. So if crypto as a whole drops, then from one quarter to the next, then you expect USD equivalent volume to just drop, right? So Fede mentioned comparing against maybe other DEXs and other protocols. The other thing to consider would be, I guess, against centralized exchanges, because at the end of the day, it's all part of like price finding, isn't it? And Uniswap, the mechanism relies on arbitrage to do the price finding. So yeah, if you compare against, I don't know, Coinbase and all the others, what does it show? And then also another very important thing for V3 specifically is, of course, the capital efficiency, right? Concentrated liquidity, from the perspective of, well, both liquidity providers in terms of earning fees, and also for swappers in terms of getting the best execution price, including any fee that they might need to pay on other protocols or centralized exchanges. Does Uniswap give the best value? I think those are the type of comparative like metrics that I personally am most interested in. Yeah.
Right. I think those are great points that you make. And YJ, just to kind of supplement what you're saying, and I think all of you guys talked about this, is there's not a lot Uniswap can do as an individual protocol relative to the broader crypto economy, whatever you want to call it. It's just kind of your metrics are going to vary. They're going to fluctuate, right? Just depending on how crypto does in general for the quarter. And I mean, just for numbers to really back that up, YJ, you pointed this out earlier, is crypto as, I guess, an entire ecosystem went from $3 trillion in Q4 to $2 trillion, right, at the end of Q1. So that is like a 50% decrease in terms of just like how the size of the economy shrunk. But when you look at some of these metrics, right, for Uniswap, I think Uniswap actually showed kind of its resiliency, because volume only decreased 20%. So what does that mean? It means if you convert the US dollar equivalent, they probably did just as well, or maybe even slightly better than they did the previous quarter. And there's probably a continued growth of users, of trades. I think there's all like very positive signs. I don't know if you guys all saw, right? On Twitter, like Coinbase this week, they kind of like announced, or at least Coinbase, very like kind of US centric exchange, but they announced a bunch of new tokens that they want to go and list. And it's a lot of like stuff that people don't necessarily know. Some of them are like people do know, and a decent number of them people didn't know. And I guess like in my head, just thinking about that as well, it seems like they're trying to go and compete with Uniswap, because it's so easy to go and list a token on Uniswap. Once you have an airdrop or whatever, it's immediately on there. With Coinbase, it's just so much harder to do that, but they're trying to kind of just like list as many tokens as they can. And that's going to be an advantage that Uniswap will probably just have over centralized exchanges. So I think you guys, great points. I think the way you guys think about Uniswap, I definitely agree, is like a very holistic picture. One of the things I think, we can jump down maybe to like the next slide here. If we want to kind of move here, we can skip this one here, but I kind of want to talk about the growth of Polygon. So if we want to jump, we can keep it here. So this is in, I think, reverse order. I'm not quite sure what is happening in this chart, but basically towards the left side of this chart, right? This is a graph that we've included in the report. But on the left side of this chart here, at least from what I'm seeing, you kind of see some of the scaling solutions start to take place in terms of liquidity. It's still very dominated by Ethereum. You get your dark blue, you have your light blue shading, which represent V2 and V3. But I think like one of the biggest winners of Q1 was Polygon, right? And Polygon's growth was very organic. There wasn't, Boris, like you tweeted the other day, there wasn't any liquidity mining incentives that went live in Q1. They, I think, are live as of now for the first week of April. So when Polygon goes and says, we're going to go and institute liquidity mining, question for you guys, does Uniswap or do people in the community have any sort of interaction with the Polygon team when they go and say they're going to go and implement liquidity mining? Like, how do people hold them to it to make sure that that gets implemented?
Okay, maybe I answered this one since I was the most involved one. I tweeted out a small thread 100 days after the proposal passed, and there weren't too many news about the liquidity mining incentives, but I wasn't paying enough attention, so that's a mistake on my part. There was actually a developer in Polygon who was updating people, but I didn't follow him, so I didn't see. And Polygon main accounts are just too busy always updating us on the things that are actually launching. So they don't update people on things that they are working on because they're constantly launching something. I think you asked, does Uniswap community or governance or whoever has a say in how these liquidity mining incentives will look like on Polygon? And we do not. It's completely organized by the Polygon team. And how do we hold them, for their promise? My English is bad. So how we make sure that what they promised is actually fulfilled. So Polygon team is a highly respectful one. So one thing that is not common in crypto, we trusted that they will. There wasn't a trustless process. We as a governance, I wanted to say. So they said there will be up to 15 million in liquidity mining incentives. And we said, yeah, sure, that sounds good. And then sometimes passed. And if they just didn't do anything, we wouldn't be able to do anything as well. But I know the other internet researcher group that's been supported by Uniswap Grant Program is actually researching on how can we make this trustless. So if somebody claims that they will do something, if a proposal passes, what kind of mechanics can we implement so this becomes a trustless process and it just gets executed automatically. Hopefully I didn't miss any of your questions.
No, yeah, I think that's great. In the governance proposal for Polygon, and the way you phrased it as well, it's phrased as we're going to give up to $15 million of liquidity mining incentives and up to $5 million to support kind of the V3 on Polygon ecosystem. When they say things like up to 15 or up to 3, I saw recently that the live liquidity mining right now, I think they've set aside $3 million through a third party. And I guess what I'm kind of curious about is that traditionally what occurs, when they say we're going to hit up to 15 million, but then they set aside 3 million, is that common? And then also, like, is it common to use a third party? I think they use like Arrakis Finance to go and set that up. Are those like things that you traditionally see?
I don't think we saw. I think this was like first time in history, at least of Uniswap, that somebody promised something. So and then that liquidity mining incentives happened. I don't think there's like a usual case for it, or am I missing something? Do you have any other examples of this kind of deal happening?
I don't think in the Uniswap ecosystem for sure. And I think, as Boris was saying, it's probably an area of improvement that as a governance, we have to figure out how to make sure that these agreements are followed up. Because, I think it's an area that is interesting, and how to make it in a trustless way, how to make people follow up on their promises. I think it's interesting, but at the end, in this case, I mean, it was the first time. Maybe it was not perfect, but at the end, it came true in some ways.
Polygon, I guess, just kind of summarize here, like they've had tremendous organic growth even without the liquidity mining. They've, I think, been the fastest rising in terms of growth relative to time out of the three non-Ethereum scaling solutions for V3. So they've done a tremendous job.
Yeah. I wanted to, as we said at the beginning, we are running a Uniswap analytics program, and one of the bounties that we published was exactly about the growth of Uniswap on Polygon. And we got some very good dashboard from the community showing how fast Uniswap was able to affirm itself on Polygon. And in around less than a month, it became the biggest DEX on Polygon without liquidity mining incentives. I think it's a very interesting data point that, our analysts in the community pointed out.
Right. And the Polygon community is just in general very big too. So I think there's a lot of like market capture opportunity for Uniswap in terms of.
I think that was what I was going to say. I think part of it is dependent on how much like ERC20s have already been breached over from mainnet to Polygon prior to Uniswap V3 launch following the successful governance proposal. Because, the different scaling solutions all went online onto mainnet at different times, right? And then on each of them, there are different major and maybe like chain exclusive projects that launch on it. So some of them, maybe with Polygon, I never really looked into the data yet. Maybe this is one analytics that would be interesting to look at. They might have already had a lot of projects and tokens being breached over or launched natively or exclusively on Polygon. So when Uniswap is there, then there's a lot more tokens available for liquidity and swapping. So that's kind of maybe just a gut feel from my end. I haven't looked into the data for that. And then in terms of the liquidity mining kind of promise, I guess, it's going to be very difficult. We are as a community and as a grants program, we're trying to encourage, as we mentioned, more trustless tooling and processes to make it go smoother and better. But if you think about it, when the Polygon governance proposal was put up, that there was never any cross-chain governance process or tooling at all, right? So it was more, it has to be a trust-based thing. So when they say we'll launch on Polygon, at the time Uniswap Labs will have to work with them to launch it, right? And then put in the rails to make sure that everything works. And since then, actually things have been happening, and grants UGP actually funded GFX Labs to start researching cross-chain governance for Uniswap, and that resulted in kind of, as a test case, a successful activation of the 1 basis point pool on Polygon just a few days ago. So hoping that as a grants program, we could encourage more and more of this type of research and tooling development to make things move towards full trustlessness. So yeah, those are my kind of comments on the previous 2 points, really.
Right. I'm glad you brought up the 1 basis point.
Can I just share one thing when it comes to L2 solutions that I think might be important?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a graph here of liquidity, and I don't think that liquidity and volume in terms of numbers is as important as a number of unique addresses that interacted on the certain L2 solution, because big whales and big traders will always prefer security of a main chain and liquidity of a main chain over trusting some L2 solution, because the safest chain is the Ethereum chain. But what happens on the main chain is that smaller traders get priced out by gas, and here is where L2 solutions come in play, and they make it so that you can still, do trustless swaps, fully decentralized, not fully, but as far as it currently goes. So yeah, it just opens door for smaller traders to enter the scene and invest in the tokens and swap tokens that they like. So that was one point that I wanted to share.
Right. I think that's a great point. I guess, Boris, to add on to what you're saying, right? One reason why, in my opinion, I guess why Polygon has really taken off is like Polygon is just seen as a side chain. It's like very easy to bridge between Polygon and Ethereum. But you go to something like Optimism, right? Optimistic L2 rollups, and it's a little bit more difficult to move money back and forth in terms of just waiting periods and things like that. And so I assume when ZK rollups or like when they become more live or they include kind of you can launch smart contracts on ZK rollups, things like that. The governance community at at Uniswap are probably going to go and try to set that up as well. And we'll probably see some good organic growth from there too. Because again, like you said, cheaper costs, but you don't have to worry about some of the difficulties with using kind of the optimistic rollups in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. The L2 scene is still developing, and people put a lot of hope into ZK rollups to make it even better. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And Ethereum as a chain is also progressing, and will be able to sustain more transactions per second. And combination of these two things, might make it so that we don't ever see $300 fees on Uniswap ever again. It will be something that we will tell kids about, So yeah, the whole the whole scene is just making it so that it can sustain higher throughput in a sustainable way, so not jeopardizing decentralization and security too much. If we talk about some L2 solutions, and that will enable lower fees, which will enable more people to actually use Uniswap as a DApp or DApp on those chains.
Right. YJ, you mentioned something that I thought was pretty interesting, which is the cross governance proposal that's kind of going on right now with Polygon and the 1 basis point fee tier. The 1 basis point fee tier, I talk about in the report, but extremely successful. I think a very good example of governance coming together and coming up with something that is really beneficial to everyone, to LPs, to people who want to make swaps on Uniswap. And I think since its creation is generated like $2.5 to $3 million of fees for LPs. So, big win for everyone. I guess my question, I'm kind of curious to hear your thought on this, is in terms of cross-chain governance, this is the first example of cross-chain governance, but in the future, how do you envision cross-chain governance to play out? Do you kind of think maybe like right now it's live on Ethereum and then gets implemented on Polygon? Do you think that will continue to be the case? Do you guys think it might be the other way around, where like maybe you test something on Polygon, if there's a little less activity, you see if it works, and then you try it on Ethereum, or kind of like assuming cross-chain governance works? What are your guys' kind of takes on that?
I think it's it's hard to say. It's still developing. It's so new that and just in governance in general, like even voting mechanism is being changed all the time by different projects, and people are still experimenting on it. The thing with Uniswap governance is, well, the Uniswap protocol as a whole is the immutable nature of it, right? So as it stands, now that it's been deployed, without further governance proposal that gets passed and executed, there is no I guess simple way of doing more complex, say, cross-chain stuff, right? So the Polygon one, it has to necessarily go from mainnet onto Polygon because Uni token, where voting power lies, is on mainnet Uni, right? And actually, in the previous community call that Boris hosted, we also quickly discussed this in terms of governance, the fact that Uni token actually loses its voting power if it's bridged or when it's bridged to other side chains or L2s, or actually if you put it in LP, if you put it on lending protocol and all those things. And we actually have a current live data bounty program asking community to contribute to this, to look into the stuff like the extent of loss of Uni voting power when you utilize it for other things, right? But if going back to your original question, you were saying whether what I personally see, say, experimentation being done on L2s or side chains before moving back to mainnet. As it stands, that cannot happen, right? But that's not to say that it will not happen. So I'm personally quite excited to see what people come up with to experiment on this. And actually, Uni Grants is, as a grants program where we're looking for people to submit applications to research and maybe prototype or test or experiment with all these. I think it'll be pretty exciting to see. And of course, with Uniswap maybe continuing to get deployed on other chains, this stuff like cross-chain processor mechanism become more and more important. So yeah, I'm personally quite looking forward to seeing like the new stuff that can come up from that.
Right, definitely. Well, you bring up the grants program. You kind of bring up your, you guys are exploring a lot of different ways to do some studies on how you can do governance with the Uni token on other chains and just other initiatives in general for the grants program. And I kind of want to talk about the grants program a little bit here. This is obviously your guys' bread and butter, seeing all these proposals and stuff. The first question I have is a fun one for myself, which is when I go and DM the Uniswap Grants Program Twitter handle, which one of you guys is responding to me?
None of us, I think.
Really? None of you guys. Right,
we have a shadow writer.
All right. Well, whoever that person is, I just wanted to say, very friendly and very helpful. So thank that person, whoever it is.
Yeah, I think you can deduce who it is if it's nobody in this chat.
Right. Of course. Right. Well, tell us a little about the grants program. How are decisions made in the grants program? Who are, in terms of deciding what projects or proposals get funded? Is it a group decision? Do you guys each look at proposals individually? What is the structure of that?
Boris, you want to take this one?
Okay, I'll do it, since I think I'm the longest period of time part of the grant program. But essentially, it is a group decision. And key question that we always ask ourselves when we look at the application is, does this fall into the grant program scope? So grants program was established by the governance to fund public goods mostly and promote the protocol in the ecosystem, but promoting doesn't really mean marketing. At least that's what we believe. So when we look at the public goods, we also, one key question that we ask ourselves when we look at the application is, will this happen if we don't intervene into it? So let's say somebody is making a for-profit project, and then a small part of that for-profit project touches Uniswap, and they would like us to, fund development of that for-profit project for that part, which touches Uniswap. And the answer to question, will that happen if we don't fund it, is yes, because they're building a whole project also, and this key part will also be part of it. But on the other spectrum, we have different SDKs, libraries, and things that wouldn't really exist, or even better, wouldn't exist in a humane way, because somebody would spend hours developing it, making it great for the others to use, and wouldn't get any kind of compensation for it. And then we step in with our connections. So grantees have questions, we make sure that they get answers, and we also support it financially. So yeah, they don't work on these things for free. And yeah, like we have a small process. We do like weekly sprints of sorts, where we have 2 ongoing sprints at the same time. So we do interviews, and then we do discussions and internal reviews, and these are kind of 2 separate sprints, where for the previous week of interviews, the current week we do discussions, and we try to find more information if we need it. And then for the interviews, we just do the interviews, take notes, so we can discuss it and do more research the next week. And yeah, I think since Fede and YJ joined, we kind of hit the just right amount of reviewers and people to not have an expanding backlog like we maybe had before. So I think we're right now pretty up to date. But yeah, I mean, it's always a discussion, and our, let's call it, working group, we trust each other. So maybe if I personally don't see value in some proposal, but Fede or YJ, they think that it's really good for the ecosystem, I will, trust their call. But of course, we are not perfect. We make mistakes, and we try to correct those as well through some of the other grants that we do, such as Gitcoin, where we actually let the community decide how funds will be distributed, or through supporting different groups, such as maybe Other Internet, that does a lot of research. So yeah, that's hopefully answers your question.
Right, definitely. This is not the most direct comparison. I know there's some differences, but I think about kind of the grants program almost like you guys are investors, and you're making investments, like you said, for not like for-profit businesses per se, and you're not looking for a direct financial return, but rather to grow the ecosystem, to benefit Uniswap protocol and the crypto community as a whole. And so when investors, right, when they give money to a project, typically they also get kind of like updates, maybe once a month, once a quarter. They want to know, like, how is my investment doing? What have you guys done with this funding? Things like that. I know we talked with governance about, okay, there's not always, I think, follow-ups in terms of governance, but with the grants program, when you give, if I want to come to you with a project for $25,000 and then you guys approve it, what goes after the approval process? Do you have check-ins with the proposer? Yeah, proposer.
Somebody else should answer this, but yes. So maybe YJ or Fede, the process.
Yes, we have continuous checks monthly or bi-monthly, depends on the project, to check the status and to try to help the grantee as much as possible with our connection to the Uniswap Labs team or to other resources from other projects. And as I shared at the beginning, I was a grantee myself, so I went through all this process, and this is what made me more and more involved in the community, and at the end ended up part of the grant program team itself. So it's also an opportunity for the grantees to be involved more, maybe to participate to hackathons, to presentations, really it's not only that they need to work on their project, but it's being part of the community and help each other to be successful at the end.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and I think it's the the distinction between kind of VC or investors and the grants program is an important one, in the sense that when we accept a grant application, we will ask for you know, a sensible kind of timeline, what their plan is, and then we put in, you know, sensible milestones for those check-ins, and they don't have to be super strict in terms of deadlines or timing. But you know, if we don't hear something back from a grantee, the main worry is that they are facing blockers that they cannot surpass, right? And we are here to encourage people to work together, open source, and create public good for the Uniswap ecosystem. So the worry is not so much, oh, did you run away with, you know, $5,000 or something? It's more like, is there something blocking you from achieving the aims of the grant that you applied for? So the check-in plays a role in that sense to see how we can help, because as Fede said, they might need some input from the labs team, they might need input from other people within crypto. So we try and do that to arrange and make those connections for them to maximize kind of the return from grants, which we, you know, Uniswap Grants Program was given mandate by community governance for. So yeah, that's a bit of a difference, I guess.
Right, that makes sense. From your guys' perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges that you think you guys face when you go through proposals, when you accept proposals, just managing the grants program? You know, I've heard from people who are part of grants program, and they always say, you know, this is a very time-consuming job. It's a very extensive role. And, you know, Fede, what you're saying, it sounds like you guys have check-ins. If you guys have check-ins with, I don't know how many grants you guys approve every week, but I assume it's, you know, one or two, several, maybe a week. That's a decent number of check-ins that you kind of continuously have to do every month or every 2 months. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious, from your perspective, what are some of the blockers on your end, if you guys have any?
Okay, you did say Fede's name, but he stayed muted, so I'll answer.
No problem. Any of you guys?
No, okay, Boris. I can tell my. I think that the personally, at least, the broadness of the space and the knowledge that you have to judge some of the projects is what is the most difficult part for us, because as you know, crypto is a very, very technical space, and we move from development to token economics to governance to analytics. So there is a very wide and broad surface that we try to cover as much as possible. And when we cannot do it, we try to get help in the community to get the knowledge that is required to judge, or not to judge, but to understand the proposal.
Gotcha. Got it. And do you guys have any sort of funding minimum or maximum for any of the proposals? You know, I know that these are kind of arbitrary, these waves. They don't really mean any certain like period of time. You just kind of batch them together. But like wave 6 is noticeably higher in terms of the funding than in previous waves. And a big part of that is due to the other internet funding. I think that was very significant. But just in terms of how much you're able to give, are any sort of restrictions on your end?
There is no restrictions really. Well, the other internet grant was really big, but it's actually delegated funding. They will use those funds to fund more grants and research and different people. So it's not, just a team that will, I don't know, 5-6 of them get the whole $1 million. They will actually be sort of like a sub-DAO or committee of themselves, but they do great things in the research. So that's why we decided to support them. When we talk about some minimums and maximums, yeah, there are no such things. But and yeah, you're right. The Wave 8 already exists, but it wasn't announced. So it's just an arbitrary amount of applications that we, cut, and then we say, okay, this is a wave. And what else to say? Some things that you'll probably see in the Wave 8 that we started doing recently is smaller grants, and we're open to having a smaller part, especially when it comes to different events in different parts of the world and different communities. So spoilers, in the Wave 8, you will see a lot of smaller grants that are targeting different events and communities across the world. And we think that that's a great way of just spreading the word of Uniswap and also helping these communities grow, because let's say $5,000 to some community event that is not maybe in the most expensive part of the world will encourage more people than you would get. You will have a greater impact than maybe spending $20,000-$30,000 in the San Francisco event. So we are more open to sponsoring these smaller grants recently. So yeah. Maybe something to add, YJ?
Yeah, now I was going to say, like, in terms of the amounts, at the end of the day, the grants program is somewhat a reactive process, right? So we do not prescribe or dictate who or what should grants applications be like, right? So it's somewhat reactive and organic in the sense that it might just happen that during Wave 6, for whatever reason, a lot of people happen to prepare their grants application and submit them all at the same time. And then the ones that were deemed fundable just all added up, right? And then what Boris was saying, the spoiler alert for Wave 8, I mean, we don't know why, but Wave 8 actually had quite a few more kind of event sponsorship type grant applications that came in of different sizes, and we made a decision to fund them because we see value in them. Then that's why it is. So that's why some funds, some waves, given the arbitrary like drawing of timing, can be big or small, can be anything really. But one thing to note would be we avoid funding things that are just purely an idea with no work done yet. Like if someone comes in and say, I have this grand idea, I haven't done anything about it, I need money to do it, we try to avoid doing that. Normally, like our thinking, I think we're in alignment, is that grants funding should be mostly for things that people already put in some thought and effort into and already pursued and have some minimal progress to show. So that also kind of influence our decision-making process. So yeah.
Right. You guys want to see like a minimum viable product, I guess.
Not really that we demand it. It's just a necessity because we are a small grant program in terms of people who are part of it, and we don't have enough manpower to get the whole project off the ground, because that's the hardest part, getting it off the ground. We are here more to help you get from the current stage of your project to the next stage of your project. But getting the whole thing off the ground is currently too much for us. Maybe sometimes in the future, if we grow in numbers and manpower, we will be able to support such ideas. But right now, it's more about getting the projects to the next level.
Right. Some of the things that you said in your earlier answer, Boris, about funding events in some smaller places, I think that's like a really great idea. Like you're really stretching the value of the funding in a lot of ways. I guess, like, I assume will it be similar to Art Basel? Kind of like we have it on the screen here as one of the things that you guys funded previously or you funded last year. But I think that funding went to setting up a booth, right, to go and onboard people into crypto. Is that kind of a similar goal that you guys are kind of hoping to achieve with these funds for the smaller events?
For the smaller events, I don't think, when we think about it, it's not as much about Uniswap. It is as much as it is about onboarding people to the cryptocurrency space and blockchain space in general. So we want to support people getting into the community of blockchain in general, and then eventually they will stumble upon Uniswap almost for sure, which is great for us. We want to support these communities to grow, and eventually they will, reach Uniswap as well, all these people. Similar case was with the Art Basel. We thought that there will be a lot of people there that have interest in cryptocurrencies, but maybe didn't have anybody, to quote unquote onboard them to the space. So we thought it'd be a great idea for us as a grant program to support that.
Right. Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. I'm very excited to kind of see the grants that get released in Wave 8. You gave a little spoiler here, but curious to see what things got funded. If we move to kind of like the governance section, I know we got a couple minutes here at the very end, and I know there are some questions that we'll get to from the community. But if we go to the next page in this deck, the last page in this deck, I've got a list of some major governance updates from this past quarter. It's a little bit small here, but one of the things I really want to talk about and get your personal opinion is the fee switch. And Uniswap, this fee switch is something that everyone kind of talks about. It's very famous in the crypto community. I think for this particular proposal or this particular governance idea, it got rejected because it sounds like people wanted to go and set up a research group to understand how to best set up the fee switch or how to best turn on the fee switch. In your guys' personal opinion, when do you think the fee switch should be turned on, if ever, and how should it be done if that time does come?
YJ, maybe you take this one. I know you have a lot of opinions about the fee switch.
Sorry, I was just typing answers in the chat. Fee switch, I think it. How do I say this? I think the fact that no consensus has been forthcoming kind of just says it on its own. Really, we have people asking about it and proposing it and talking about it, but never really got enough traction as far as I can see. So in terms of the incentive, you can imagine, sure, if you have fee switch, then community governance or the community treasury will get the fee, right? Mm-hmm. So you get fed back to community treasury, and community treasury also controlled by Uni token holders with delegated voting rights. So if overall the delegated voting power collectively feels that fee switch is a good thing, then I would imagine you'll go ahead or at least progress a bit further. So my personal opinion right now is nothing is happening yet. Maybe it's just there's no real need for it yet. But it can happen anytime, right? So we should, as far as I'm concerned, like for governance, continue conversations and have debates about this. And if possible, get some data-backed like opinions or commentary on it to see what to do next. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
But will you think the fee switch ever happen? Because like in theory, there is a potential future where you have this fee switch and it just never gets turned on, right? Because the way the current system is just LPs, they get a lot of fees and it works for them. And then Uniswap as a protocol just like provides a service. They don't necessarily like earn kind of the protocol revenue that goes to the community. I don't know if, what you guys think, if it will ever happen or not.
I mean, it's a good question, and I don't think there is an answer, and it's very difficult to forecast what will happen. For me personally, the important part is the health of the protocol and the growth of the protocol. And then I think that when the community will be ready and we will know what we want to do, we can find a solution. The important thing is to have an healthy protocol. And at that moment, then once we decide to switch or another governance decision that improves the tokenomics of the Uni token, it will work. I mean, it will work. It could work. So for me, the key thing at the moment is to really focus on the health of the protocol, as you showed in your report.
Right. All right. I think that makes a lot of sense. We have a couple of questions from the community here, so I think we can spend the last couple of minutes answering those. The first question I notice is, please tell us quarterly volume of centralized exchanges like Binance and Coinbase, so we can compare how they are doing with Uniswap. And to my knowledge, Coinbase, I think they processed about $525 billion worth of trades in the quarter. And I think the previous quarter was around like 330 billion or so. So for them, it was an increase. But compared to Uniswap, if you look at the quarters, I think Uniswap processed about $180 billion. So the value you're looking at is $180 billion, $525 billion. Uniswap is processing about a third of the transaction volume of Coinbase. But Coinbase, they are seen as kind of a traditional fiat on-ramp for a lot of people. Institutions are also heavily active on a lot of centralized exchanges. So it's not a, direct apples to apples kind of comparison in that sense. But I think to say that Uniswap is processing a third of the transaction volume as a company like Coinbase is no small feat in my personal opinion there. But just to give the community some numbers there. Another question I've got is, the purpose of Uniswap grants is to encourage development of projects built on top of the Uniswap protocol or something else?
It's to grow Uniswap protocol and its ecosystem. So encourage development on top of Uniswap. We believe if we make it, streamlined, more easily, better documentation, more resources, supporting more languages, programming languages, and make that whole process more enjoyable, that is how we encourage development on top of Uniswap. But finding strategic partnerships and things like that is out of scope for the grants program. So we are here that once you decide to build on top of Uniswap, you have the best time of your life. But in making you and giving you a reason to do so, that's more for that particular team or a person to decide on.
Right. Got it. And this last question we have from the community, it is, these governance proposals seem fixated on extending Uniswap to other fledgling protocols. This is worrisome. Who is focusing on making the core product better and easier to use? And this comes from John. John, I can answer this one as well. We're talking about the Uniswap Grants Program, and that's separate from Uniswap Labs. Uniswap Labs is doing a lot of the development of the protocol. They've got the engineers who are working on the protocol. The grants program is a portion of the funding from the Treasury, and their mandate is to essentially kind of like what Boris was saying, encourage the Uniswap, or to build the Uniswap ecosystem, and kind of like shed awareness on the crypto economy as a whole. So completely separate. And I'm sure the people at Uniswap are definitely working on improving the product. And I think we are at time here, so we can just about wrap up. John's question is actually very related to my final question, which is, you guys are a little bit more close to what's going on with Uniswap than I think many of us on the call. And I wanted to just quickly ask if you have any alpha or any insights into what Uniswap v4 might look like. I think we're all kind of curious.
I don't have anything, so I actually don't. So I have no idea. Like that's why we were saying at the end of the day, to remember that Uniswap Grants Program is completely separate from Uniswap Labs. So, but I don't know. Maybe Boris has some alpha.
To be honest, first time I heard about V4 was yesterday when they were discussing some application, and somebody said this will help, in researching for the V4. And so that's as much as I know about the V4. Is there V4? Did somebody say there will be a V4?
I assume there will be. That's kind of like my assumption.
Okay. This is just my personal opinion. What will Uniswap V4 might be? So Uniswap V4 will actually, so in my opinion, be a Uniswap that combines all the different deployments. You'll have a single interface. You'll select which token you want to swap to which token, and it will execute on some chain where you will get optimal fees and slippage and price and execution time, and you won't even know where it executed, but the tokens that you wanted will end up in your wallet, and that will actually be the V4. So us as a governance deploying Uniswap v3 on all these different chains and solutions and scaling solutions, sidechains, whatever, is the path to V4. But as I said, this is just my opinion what V4 might be.
All right. Fede, YJ, you guys want to make any predictions?
No prediction. I like the vision of Boris, but really, I mean, it's just a wish at the moment. We really don't have any kind of insight on a roadmap or anything like that.
Got it. Alrighty. Well, we are kind of past the hour here. I appreciate you guys all hopping on. This was a really enjoyable experience, and enjoyed getting to chat about the health of the protocol, what you guys are doing on the grants program, and some of these kind of roadmap governance updates that are currently ongoing. So thanks everyone for tuning in, in the audience, and to the three of you guys, and wish you guys a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks a lot.